What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to JG's Lounge. I'm your host, Jukebox, and we are back with another episode of Singed Eye Sockets. First off, a few announcements. I've been bragging a lot on our Facebook. We've been jumping in subscribers and views. We've hit almost 90,000 views in the last month. We've climbed, I think, 81 subscribers just this month alone. We're looking at 797 right now. 27. I jumped the gun on that, but by the end of the day, it'll be 797, so it's okay. So I'm really excited. Everybody, thank you so much. This has been fantastic, and it's only going to keep skyrocketing, especially with the help of the guys that we got on today. I usually start out with evolution. So Sean, why don't we start out with you this time? How you doing, man?
I'm sorry. It's so different when you start with me. How am I doing today? I'm doing fantastically. Things are going well. School's going well. All the good things. So yeah, good stuff, man. And congratulations to you for what you've built with this network, man. Because like you're aggregating all of these amazing people like Davin, from Davin's Den, Davin Rosenblatt, fantastic. Evolution's come in with 5,000 podcasts per week, and now you're talking to some major players that have been underground, like possibly getting a global in here. I mean, it's just you're gonna have so much amazing content, man, and people don't even know. And there was a time I remember a couple years ago, like a year or so, or whatever it was ago, where this wasn't, where it's at, but you stuck to it, man. And like, if I may say, I'm proud of you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And yeah, like, I think it was about a year ago that I actually was talking about just stopping. I took about 2 months off and was debating on stopping. And honestly, it kind of helped me kind of revamp the whole, I don't know, concept that I was going for too. And that's kind of did help. So, cause I don't feel like I'm dedicating, 15 hours a week to do 15 different shows, and that's the part that's nice, is that I don't have to do that. With that being said, Evolution, man, how you doing?
Hey, man, it's a great morning. A little tired because, like Sean said, I'm doing a lot of things here lately. But yeah, man, to back him up, congrats, man. We're sitting here watching this thing explode in front of our face, and it's really an amazing thing to be a part of. Really, really glad to be a part of it. You guys are awesome, and I love working with you. And just looking forward to what happens next, man.
Yeah. And I don't even know what's happening next. It's just kind of ridiculous. But I'm excited. I really am excited. And with that being said, Sean, you just launched your second podcast, man. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was. Thanks.
Tell everybody a little bit about it.
It's okay. So it's called Blurred Lines, and I'll credit to you for coming up with the name, because we bandied that about a bit. But I think it was an inevitability. And what kind of sparked it was a combination of you and another. You've had Brad Miller on, I believe, right?
I have, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Brad, great dude. But we were at a show the other night, and I was headlining the show, and he went up right before me. And he was roasting all the comics, which Brad doesn't do, because he's like this super nice, smile, very Christian, super sweetheart of a guy. And he's just roasting people left and right. And then he gets to me, he goes, Sean is not an angry guy, but man, if you mention the moon landing and then I'm out in the crowd and I go, it was faked. It was faked. I went off on this tirade. I go on stage and I'm just like golf a tonk and, just like start laying all this stuff out. And then we had talked about another thing, and, we had mentioned the conspiracy stuff, and it just came from there. And it's the one thing I want everybody to know is that the concern for conspiracies does not come from, like I love investigating things and stuff, but I have this deep sense of justice, and I hate when people do things in the dark that give people hurt or take advantage of people. So when folks start to see the dots connecting when other people don't, it behooves us to go, hey, there's some heinous shit going on over here that you are
Right.
not paying attention to,
Right.
So I can go down this rabbit hole, but we got stuff to do.
Yeah. No, I'm excited to see where this show goes. And maybe some of the guests that you're going to have on as well. Was Jerry Goble being on last night, or was it yesterday? No, we launched it yesterday, huh?
Did you watch all of that? I know you pulled some clips and things.
I watched like the first 15 minutes, and then I got busy, but I'll keep watching because I do like it.
My God, I told you, isn't he just like?
He's got some information,
dude.
We'll have to get him on Evolution show.
Oh, absolutely.
Hey.
Evolution. I'm telling you, dude. Like, I tried to stick to the moon landing. All right, one subject. We probably hit 30 or 40 different. He's just like, well, this ties into this, and if you do that, and we were talking about Easter Island, the mud floods.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it just was. And I was like,
all over the place.
Yeah, I'll just let it go because that's what he does. The guys, you talk about genius level intelligence, dude. I'm going for my PhD, and Jerry is, wow, he's stratosphere, dude.
He's clearly well read. I mean, just from what little I was watching, I mean, he at least does his research.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Nice.
So to get into today's topic, we've touched on, Gypsy Rose and the murder of her mom. We've touched on Natalie Grace and whether she was, treated appropriately or if she was actually in the wrong or not. Then we did the disappearance or the froze to death in the mountains of the Dyatlov Pass. And I'm trying to kind of keep mixing up the styles of cases that we're picking. So today I picked a disappearance case that's actually still active. It happened June 15th of 2021. So it's a disappearance of Summer Moon Utah Wells, 5 years old. Hey, look, somebody sent me a snap. She's 40 pounds, 3 feet tall when this happened. And again, this was June 15th in Tennessee, like backwoods Tennessee. And we'll kind of get into that. But Summer Wells was one of 4 siblings. She had 3 brothers. And I can pop up a picture of them too. They were 7, 9, and 12 at the time that she disappeared. And this all really kind of struck my interest when I started hearing the different sides of the story, because none of them really line up. And I figured the way we're going to do the show today is there's a ton of information about the parents that about their past and how like they just weren't great people to begin with, and if they should even had kids. I mean, there's plenty of different history behind them that kind of makes them not really the best fit for parents. But I don't really think that it matters directly in the disappearance, so I'm not going to touch too much on that. I mean, it might pop up in the conversation, but I just want to kind of get the little bits of information out there now. Like Dawn, so we got Dawn and Candace Wells. Those are the people popped up there right now as the parents. They live on 11 acres in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee. Their property is on top of a hill, and it's not the best looking location, to be honest with you. Let me pop up their property here. But they are, I mean, your stereotypical like backwoods family. Like,
they kind of look like they're
well,
those weird movies.
Go ahead, Sean.
It's funny that you said evolution, because there is a theory out there, and this doesn't strike everybody the best, but it is a physiology and a psychology kind of amalgamation of the structure of people's faces and being able to look at them and guesstimate their socioeconomic status.
Really?
Wow.
Yes. Yeah,
Pop-
because there are certain facial features that and this cuts across all racial boundaries and things. It's not a black, white, anything. It's like their facial structure and things. And you start to notice some commonalities like the cheek structure and foreheads and things like that. And if you take away their clothes and just look at the facial structure and things like that, you will start to notice some commonalities of like folks that are backwoods and poor and things like that. Because I noticed the commonalities years ago in high school, and I remember talking about it with my parents, and I started looking into it, and it's actually something that scientists have studied too.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, I'm not nuts for noticing like these connecting threads.
Right.
So when I saw her and him and like the elongated and the cheek structures and things, I went, and then evolution said something, so I was like, okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, and it's true though. I mean, you can kind of just get it's almost like a vibe that the people put off too, like if you're around them as well, or if you like in the interviews, you can. I mean, it's just obvious the way they talk. I mean, some of the stuff that and the conversations they talk about the property, it was very obvious that they're just not the wealthiest family. So Don does do drywall. He runs a company, and he goes hours away on some days for work. So the day of the incident, he was actually about a little over an hour away from the property when he got the call from Candace about,
Proven an hour away?
Yes. I mean well, no, that's not proven. Nobody knows for certain, but they do know that. I mean, the police did say that he was not there during the time of it. That was proven during like the time, whatever. There was people who confirmed that he wasn't there. So here's our property, 11 acres. From this top view, all you can kind of see is the house and a circle drive, which is really the only way on and off the property. You have to circle this driveway. And if you look close, there's a camper just north of the house. That's where Candace's mother, Candy, lives. They're both Candace, but the mother goes by Candy. So we're going to kind of get that out there now.
Okay.
So like maybe 20 feet away from the actual house.
Right.
So on the day of June 15th, about 7 a.m, Don goes to work. Candace's mom has an appointment to go to the doctor to look at her leg. So she gets the kids up and gets them loaded and ready to go to the city. Now, when they drop off the mom for her appointment, they also swing by and pick up a neighbor kid named Hunter because he just wanted to hang out with them for a little bit. And they drop off the mom and decide to pass some time because she's in there they drop off the mom, they get her from their appointment afterwards, and then the prescription is going to take about 45 minutes to fill. So they go to like a little water hole down the road. This will have some relevance to it because this is where the stories start not lining up. Summer, go ahead.
Okay. I grew up pretty much not on the top of the poverty-stricken country. Now, when you say water hole, do you mean fishing hole, swimming hole? What are we talking about?
It's like a swimming hole. The way they say is swimming hole. That's what they all in the interviews called it, a swimming hole. And they even said the name on here, but I didn't really think that mattered as much. But so Summer swimming, and Candace and Candy are just laying on the ground on their phones. And Hunter says that Summer goes under the water for about 15 to 20 seconds, and Candy and Candace aren't paying any attention. So he takes his shirt off and goes in after her, gets her. She says she's fine, coughs a little bit, and gets out. Now, at first, I wasn't going to use this information, but it might play one of the theories later on. So they go back, get her prescription, and go to the grocery store. Hunter and Summer are still in the truck. while Candace and Candy go into the grocery store. And here's where it starts getting weird, because Hunter says that they were in there for about an hour. Candace says it was like 5 or 10 minutes. Hunter says that the windows were up and the truck was off. And Candace did not deny that, but she did only say that they were in there for about 5 to 10 minutes. So right off the bat, already starting to have some weird, not accurate stories. And then they took a picture of Summer in the truck, basically saying that she was sleeping, that they thought she was sleeping, but there are theories saying that she might have passed away at this point. There is something where you can actually drown later after you go, like later on in the day, because water can get trapped in your lungs. So there are theories that she might have already passed away at this point.
Wow.
The way she's laying, I mean, there are some things that I can kind of see, but not to the point where I can for sure say that, yeah, she's gone. People point out like the way her hands are laying and just kind of the way she's slouched.
And she's completely straight. So when I'm thinking about when people lay that way, they're kind of sunk into what they're laying on, and she's completely straight.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, there's no slouching or anything like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if you look in the top corner, top left, you can see that the boy Hunter's arm is kind of resting over the top of the seat. You can barely see it.
Yeah.
Really?
So he was in the back, but he never really says that she was, whether she was or wasn't. He just said that they thought she was sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I wanted to throw this out here now, get it out there, in case later on you guys think maybe this is what happened or not. I'm not opposed to this theory, especially as we start digging more into this.
Mm-hmm.
Sean, you got anything yet?
Well, okay. So I used to be an EMT of all the million years that I've had.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you haven't done?
Dude, I've always had 2 to 3 jobs, so it's I've done a lot.
Right.
But I've run on transports where we had to pick somebody up that was in full rigor. I know what that looks like. I know what it feels like to pick somebody up that is in rigor. And I mean, depending on the thing that she's laying on, the hands not so much, but the straightness is a little weird because I'm looking at the neck, the positioning of the neck, and unless that whatever that is like super solid, it is a bit strange that it's like this and not this.
So it was and this was a video. It was like a really like short 4-second video clip, and that somebody screenshotted this and posted this online. So it was the best one I could get.
There's no, because I'm looking under the eyes to see if I can't remember if they call this a petechial hemorrhaging, but there's no like strain or looks like any of that stuff. But was the mom a smoker by any chance?
It does. So I was going to get into that on the way back to the property. So after they got to the grocery store, they swing by a smoke shop. It's a little like pot shop, and she picks up like some canisters for a vape pen and stuff. So I'm guessing that, I mean, we know that she's smoking. I don't know what, probably weed. There is history of drugs.
Okay.
And it doesn't really specify what kind. They do. Don points out later, which we'll discuss, that he fired an employee because he thought he was on meth. So I don't think that they dove that deep, but there's drugs involved as far as the parents.
Yeah, it's not what I'm asking. This is more of like, you talk about, she says we were in there for 5 minutes, and I just in my brain, not having heard her on an interview here, like, we were just in there for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see her swinging that way with the argument. Hunter says for like an hour, but okay, so you've got a kid out in a hot truck. His perspective is going to be stretched. She's in there doing stuff. She thinks it's very short. But if you have somebody that's a dedicated smoker, and one of the things I was looking at in their initial picture is typically smokers have like smoke lines
right
in their lips. You'll see it, and particularly where the cigarette normally lands, because they always smoke in the same spot. And if she's a smoker, she's not staying in a store for a solid hour. It's not going to happen. all right, she's going to step out for a smoke, something like that. So that's why I'm just like, the timeline seems a little bit weird between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, and another stat that I saw, like from some of the doctors and so they were on Dr. Phil later on, and Dr. Phil even talked about how he doesn't think that they killed her, which I can see that being the case, but it doesn't mean that they're not hiding something.
Mhm.
And
Right.
a lot of the speculation kind of leaned on Dawn as being one of the people that might have been the killer or somebody that was involved in removing her. But the more you dive into it, it almost doesn't make sense. So
I want to point out relativity because Sean said something that sparked something in my brain. Um, a kid being in a car, if it's 5 minutes, it may seem like an hour,
right,
because they're just sitting there waiting, doing nothing, versus a parent being in a store. Um, Time's going to seem like it's going really fast. So I just wanted to point that out because, especially if it's hot, a second's going to seem like a minute, and a minute's going to seem like an hour.
right. Yeah, and actually, I was gonna say something about the way that a lot of the doctors said is the mental state of people. On average, when they say 5 minutes, it's usually about 10 to 15
Mm.
minutes. It's never spot on what they say.
Mhm.
You got to swing 15 minutes.
Mhm.
Just based on, most statistic people saying that term, just 5 minutes. So there is that
Mhm.
too.
Got it.
Either way, we're already off to a terrible start.
The podcast?
So
I thought that everything was going great. What did we do wrong, Jukebox?
everybody's story's already not lining up, and actually Candace's mom Candy mostly doesn't talk at all. I mean, you don't hear from her on any of the documentaries, on any of this stuff. Like, she does not speak.
Mm.
She talks, but she doesn't speak on any of the interviews.
I mean, she does stay in a camper next to the house. I mean,
Right. And you would think, well, and she was involved, like she was around during the disappearance too, so it's like so
really.
yeah.
Okay.
And so Hunter decides at this point he doesn't want to stay and hang out with them and go back to the property, so they take him home. And so that's where that story ends. And so they go back to the house. According to Candace, they go in the house for a few minutes, and then her mom wants to plant some flowers. So Summer goes out with Candace and Candy, and they're hanging out over by the camper. And go ahead. Somebody gonna say something? No. Okay.
No, sorry. No, I burped. Excuse me.
No, you're good. You're good. So Summer's helping them plant some bulbs, and decides that she wants to go back inside. So Candace says that she takes her into the house, tells the boys to watch her, and then goes back outside, only for a few minutes. And during this time, Summer disappears, vanishes without a trace. And so she says she goes back in the house, asks the boys where Summer is. They say, oh, she's in the basement playing. She yells down for Summer, gets no response, which she says is rare. Usually Summer is quick to respond. Goes down in the basement, and Summer's just gone. She's disappeared. This is afternoon at this point, and she hasn't called and reported anything yet. Let's see here. I should have a picture of this. Is the basement back door. So the only way, unless the boys saw something, which they say they didn't, this would have been the only way for her to have gone out is through the basement door here at the bottom of this backside of the hill, back of the house. And if you notice this dog on the side to the right, they had 8 to 12 dogs. They did not confirm how many dogs they had. So at first that strikes me is 8 to 12 dogs. None of them barked. According to Candace, right away, her speculations is that she either wandered off into the woods or was abducted at the bottom. Like I said, they're on the top of a hill, and there's apparently a walking path through the woods up to this back door. And she's like, this is where they would have came up and got her.
No,
but now we're already that was if that is the case, it's somebody that knows the house and has been there many times.
Yeah,
because the dogs didn't make a damn noise, and they were outside. Candace and Candy were outside planting flowers during this time. So it just doesn't make sense.
No,
You know,
it doesn't.
Well, another problem, I mean, they talk about a walking path and things. And if it's somebody that's familiar, and it's quite possible, if they were just like, hey, come here, and she's 5, she knows them, right? Possible.
right.
But for folks that haven't grown up in the woods and on acreage, 1 acre is a decent amount of land. Now you take that 1 acre and you spread it out over 11, that is a shitload of land. And then you're talking on top of a hill in Tennessee. Now you're talking, so for somebody to actually have gone to do this, first of all, that's a lot of effort.
Right.
It's a lot of fucking effort.
Right.
And the other thing I want to bring up then is in Tennessee, there are cryptids. Now, if you don't know what cryptid is, we're talking about like chupacabra and Bigfoot, things like that. There's something called the Tennessee Terror that could have taken her.
There's also Kentucky goblins that have been spotted in those areas as well.
Kentucky goblins, the White Bluff Screamer, the Flintville Monster, Tennessee Wildman. That might just be a drunk. The Knot Deer. And here's if you can see, there's a picture of a deer with its antlers on fire. The kid probably would have screamed if she saw that. So there are possibilities, gentlemen.
I mean, yeah, and I wasn't going to bring a paranormal aspect into it, but I mean, it's definitely there. There's also apparently there are bears and mountain lions in this area because it's not. I mean, they're small mountains, but they are in that area to where there is bears and other animals.
But again,
barking. 8 to 12 dogs. Not one dog made a sound. Candace and Candy are out there just on the other side of the property. And in order for her to get out that back door, and what she said is every time Summer comes out to play, she always goes around to the side of the house, which is to the left. And there's a swing over here up in the corner. You can't really see it, but that's where she goes and plays. So she said if she would have came out, that's where she would have went. She wouldn't have just wandered off.
And and on the right side of the picture, that's the mom's camper then, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay, so from the topography, so now we get the lay of the land. That circle around, you're actually going up and around. It's not flat.
Yeah, right. If a car would have pulled up on the property, the only way it would have, they would have noticed because it's literally a massive circle drive.
Okay.
So before we get into the phone calls, I did get a little video clip of one of the interviews of her, Candace, walking somebody through their house. And I had to clip it because when you see the state of this house, it starts going into more questioning of how their parenting is and some of the living situations. So let's get this.
So I want to show some of this video for folks at home, and I want us to walk through exactly what you saw inside this home.
So this is Candace showing me essentially where the boys were sitting. They were sitting right there at that table, looking at that TV, playing video games. Summer went down into the basement. She's pointing to this table here that has basically a crawl space into it. And down into that crawl space goes down into the parents' and Summer's room.
Wow.
Right. It's like a workbench table that they converted into like a weird little crawl space that was stairs down into the basement.
Does the word hoarder kind of jump into your mind?
In a lot of the stuff that they talk about that.
I mean, I noticed that they at least believe in toilet paper because of this thing. Okay, so here's a question then off of what we just saw. All right, so they're obviously hill folks,
right,
up in Tennessee, and look, man, I grew up around rednecks. I still am one to some degree, so there's no judgment that way. But if you look at some of the things that are somewhat stereotypical of hill folks in those areas, preppers, right?
Right.
So were they saying that entrance, that crawl space was the way that they got to their room? Because
yes.
then that's
Wow.
intentional. That must have been one of those things where they're like, they build it that way. Because if you're going to look into a house, say you're breaking into a house, you're looking for a bedroom, bro, you're not looking under a table,
No.
right?
No.
So there's some prepping redneck ingenuity
Mhm.
in that move, but it's a little weird too.
It is. It's
Yeah.
very weird.
That's very weird. So that makes me wonder, and we'll probably get into it, what other shit is hidden on that property.
Man,
Right,
a crawl
right.
space to your room. Wow.
Under that they built into a table. Like it's
Yeah.
very weird.
Wow.
And that kind of triggered me right off the bat. So I got that, and then I got this second half here. We're gonna watch this.
Can
part
I
two.
stop you real
Okay.
quick, Chris? Because this is the only way to get to Summers and the parents' room is through this crawl space.
Right. This
Okay.
is the way she said Summer went into that basement.
Why do they have it set up like that?
That is a great question. I don't have that answer.
Okay, continue.
So we get down there, and of course, this is Summer's room here that you're seeing. All of the items in the back corner belong to Summer. There's a mattress on the floor, the 2 bunk beds. The windows are secured with reflective type of materials. And so you can tell this is, it's pretty, pretty striking pretty quickly.
Mm.
Yeah. So her room is basically just this. I mean, it's an unfinished just space is all it is. And actually, if you guys weren't paying attention as they were coming down the stairs during this video, there is some explicit content on the TV. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but there's a girl lifting her shirt up like Girls Gone Wild. And a lot of
Wow.
people put this into a lot of the research about that not even being a thing anymore, like those infomercials about Girls Gone Wild back in like the 90s and early 2000s, which kind of would say that it's like a pre-recorded VHS. But the fact that that's just playing on the TV, the daughter's down there. So they talk about how, maybe the kids have been introduced into kind of that sexual atmosphere from the explicit content early on, and Don was known for molesting his siblings back in the day.
Wow.
And which doesn't, it plays into this if you want to lean towards the side that maybe Don had something to do with it, or even Candace. But either way, I mean, this is clearly probably not the best space for children to be living in.
No.
Right.
Way out in the distance and crawl spaces to your room and that type of stuff on the television. It's not
Right.
heading in the right direction.
and from my experience, most people that cover the windows like that usually have some sort of a drug problem, because I know a lot of people that have like been on meth and stuff like that, they'll like get paranoid and block their windows and stuff, like they're being watched kind of thing.
Mm.
And I noticed that. I thought that was weird. I'm not saying that they're meth heads, but clearly there's some stuff that's way off here.
No, typically, no, I think you're right, Jukebox, because typically, like even in the poorest of the poor, they don't do aluminum foil reflective materials. They put up old curtains, or they'll even take tacks or nails and drape a towel, to
Right.
occlude the light. They won't do reflective material typically. That's an interesting choice for
Right.
that. But I'm getting some heebie-jeebies.
Yeah.
These folks, because it's I'm
kind of backing up to what you were saying about what was on the TV. They're escorting people into this room and showing them what the room looks like with this on the TV. So
Right.
it's like a very comfortable images on the TV for them, so much
Right.
that they're showing these people while it's on there. And this
Yeah.
is the little girl's room. Wow.
Right. Yeah, it's very Very weird. And so here's where she goes outside. She's looking around for her for a few minutes, and then she calls Don. And she says she's missing. You need to come home. At this point, they both hang up and call the police. And according to the dispatch, you don't hear the phone calls from them, but according to the dispatch, the way that they report it over the comm is that there's a 4-year-old missing on the property because the mom went for a walk. So somewhere, yes. So this is the dispatch. So they don't know if this is coming from Don's report or from Candace's report because of the fact that they both called it in. The only things that a lot of like the doctors and stuff that were doing the investigations said that could make sense is that Don didn't know what happened. And when he called, he could have been frantic and just kind of spewed out some stuff. So, but still weird. So Don's an hour away. According to several different stories, he's an hour away. He says that he gets back to the property before the police do. According to Candace, yeah. I mean, they are in the middle of nowhere, but even then, an hour is kind of stretching, especially this day and age. This is only 2 years ago, so it's not like it was that far ago. Candace's story is that she jumps in her truck and drives down to a church down the road looking for her because sometimes she walks down to the church and she sees cops heading back to the property. So she turns around and goes back. And that was not an hour. That was maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So again, more that doesn't line up, right?
And if she's looking for a missing daughter, why would she turn around and go back?
Well, because of police, but still.
Well, I mean, yeah, but if you think your child is somewhere and you're a parent and you're concerned and they're missing, if you're on your way to see if there possibly can be in this location, you're gonna do that first and then go back. I'm
Right.
thinking.
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
It's yeah, that doesn't make any sense. But these I'm just gonna say, just from what the evidence is so far, I'm not too sure that these people have the highest IQs.
Right.
Is what I'm guessing. I haven't heard them speak yet, but
No.
just by her general mannerisms as she's walking through the house, the way she's carrying herself, body language wise, condition of the house, the fact that there were titties on the TV while cameras were there, and she's just like, well, she's down here, don't mind the titties. Anyway, like
Yeah.
there's just a lot of things that don't seem to strike me as that doesn't make any sense. She's going to the church. She's a good chance she's there. She sees the cops and is like, oh, well, we'll give up on that, and she just heads back.
Yeah.
Like,
Just head back to the property.
that doesn't track. So I'm with you on that evolution. That's a weird move.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Weird move.
I actually caught onto that too. I'm like, if I'm freaking out and want to see if my kid's somewhere, then I'm gonna go and look. The cops are gonna go to the property no matter what. They're gonna be there when you get back. Go check the
Right.
church.
Right.
So that's that. Now, throughout the course of the day, you've got a couple. They call EMS and some of the other agencies in the area to come help. They're scouting the property. One of the neighbors reports hearing tires passing by their property, heading towards the Wells property, in which case they wouldn't have not seen it. But this is just one neighbor's report. Nobody else says anything about a vehicle being on the property or passing by at this time. And the neighbor also reports around the time of the call that there was a scream, a muffled scream. And that's the only report you hear relating that story. So just another aspect that kind of throws it to a curve because there are no tracks to say that there was a vehicle that showed up on it. Apparently it was like a red truck that they said they saw they didn't recognize. But there's no tracks. There's no way to prove there's no evidence saying that there was a vehicle. And we got 4 people watching. Hey, thanks guys. Thanks for tuning in. Feel free to chime in on the chat. We are talking about the Summer Wells case. So
Well,
it's just, it's getting more and more confusing at this point. And by the next day, they've got 8 different agencies from the state and surrounding areas combing 1,100 acres, and that's a lot. It's a lot
lot.
of
I,
a lot. Go
I
ahead.
just have a thought though. So that truck thing is a weird one-off because
It
I will
is.
tell you, if you have lived out where not a lot of people go, um, anything that is mechanical that breaks through the sounds of nature,
Mm-hmm.
you are very well aware of. When I lived out on rural Route 1, okay, in Deer Creek, Indiana, um, you could hear, like when a truck was coming, man, you knew it. And you knew it from a mile down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so they would be very cognizant of if there's, revenuers or strangers coming up, they're going to hear it. My only question is, what kind of relationship did they have with this neighbor? Because the person that said this shit about the truck, right?
Right.
And the muffled scream doesn't like them.
Mm.
And it's like, oh yeah, I heard a scream and there's this truck and it was red. Yeah, that's it. You know what I mean?
Or,
It's,
or they were part of the what do you call it? The involvement when there
Right.
was drugs.
Right.
Well,
and that's
they were
something that kind of
participant.
plays into this story too. During the Dr. Phil interview, he mentions the Cornbread Mafia. Now,
Wow.
this is an actual thing. They're actually a drug cartel in that area. And I don't know what sparked him to bring this up, but he did. And apparently Candace got very upset and left the stage.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I know, Sean. I was
I
laughing
know
about
this is
the
a
name, too.
horrible subject, but that's the name they came up
Yeah,
with.
the Cornbread Mafia. Yeah, apparently there's like a pot cartel in the area. And she got very upset about it. Like when Dr. Phil mentions it, she gets very upset and leaves the stage.
Wow.
So I don't know.
Okay.
If you bring that aspect into it, let's say that they're involved in some drug, transportation. They could be. I could see that being an aspect to where somebody came and took the kid because they owed him money or something.
Right.
Yeah. But again, if that's the case, that would make sense. And the dog's not going off if they're related to some of the stuff happening because there's people on the property that have been involved. So, and again, this is an open investigation still to this day. Like nobody knows where she is. But
this was like broad daylight, right?
When it happened, yeah. So because it was 6:30 when the neighbor reported that they heard the screams earlier on in the day. So, like I said, it was late afternoon when this all went down. And the kids, I mean, if Candace did something, which is why I mentioned the possible drowning in the car after the fact, if she was passed on, she would have had to coax the kids into saying that she was in the basement. Because the kids reported that they were watching TV. She was in the basement. But their oldest is 12, so it's not far-fetched to say that. And if their IQs aren't that great and they're living in the middle of nowhere, the kids could be not the most intelligent either and just kind of going along with whatever.
What about Hunter, though?
And Hunter's not there anymore. And Hunter went back to his house. They dropped him off.
Right, but if she had in fact been dead, remember the photo, he's got his arm around her.
Right,
and if she had been
pop it back up.
at that point, right? So there he is. If she's passed on at that point, unless his IQ is really down in the toilet, he knows what's going on too. So either he's covering it up, and they're doing that thing that people in rural communities do where they just tighten it up, and this was just an accident and he's going to stay. You know what I mean? It's like,
is that a gallon of milk?
It's 2 gallons of milk that she's laying on.
Oh my God.
Yes. She's a tiny girl.
Okay.
Wow.
Good catch, Evolution. I did
Yeah.
not notice that. I thought it was a coat or something.
No, those
Yeah.
are 2 1-gallon milks.
Wow.
Very, very tiny girl.
So it's not soft.
No, it's not. So positionally, that might make sense at this point
Yeah.
because then
Right.
there would be no slouching because that is a hard surface.
This,
Jeez.
yeah, this is the boys' room, by the way. I mean, they're living in some slumbers.
That's
Or not wrong term, but whatever. You know what I mean?
yeah. That's. I mean, it's not squalor, but it's not
Yeah, there you go.
not squalor.
This is the video where that's the table with the black front.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're not living their best lives.
They sure do have flat screens kind of all over the place, though. I've noticed.
They have a lot of
Yeah.
flat screens, yes. But definitely hoarding, definitely not the cleanest environment, and so the investigation goes on for about a week, and they end up combing like 4 square miles with like 20 different agencies, and the number of agencies is around there. I'm just kind of based on all of the different reports and the podcasts and the research that I've done. It was a ton of agencies from like 3 different states, including the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, all involved in this. They never find the property. So with all these different stories lining up, it doesn't really, I mean, there's no confirmed evidence, but I still don't think that she was abducted on the fact that the dogs did not bark.
Mm.
But that's just my view on it. What do you guys got so far?
Well, the time frame in how she disappeared doesn't make sense to me because there were people out front planting flowers, and like Sean pointed out, if there's a truck that came up, they would have heard it. They would have knew that there was a truck, and a muffled scream as well. Plus, like you said, jukebox. There would have been some dogs barking.
Right.
So I'm thinking that's just a randomly thought up story by someone who doesn't have a high IQ,
Right.
that's covering up something that actually happened.
Yeah.
What you got?
You know, I would agree with that. It seems weird because, and going back to what Jukebox said, the dogs is like there's certain things like in any investigation or where you're trying to figure things out. You know, the things that your brain hangs up on are typically, I find, the things that you have to go back to and investigate that just don't feel right. And the dogs is the one that's really hanging me up because I've been around dogs the entirety of my life, and you know, even if they are familiar with somebody, when somebody's approaching, they still bark. Okay, even if they know you, because it's not until they catch your scent, they see you, whatever, then it's like, oh, you know, I know this person. And so if you had some rando truck coming up, if you had some hikers that were coming up out of the woods, those dogs are still, statistically speaking, 1 out of 10 of the dogs is going to woof. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they didn't bark, I mean, of course, you know, I'm assuming Jukebox is going to throw another wild curve after this. But where I'm at right now with this, at this point, is I'm assuming something happened to this kid at the swimming hole.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Something.
That's
happened.
why I brought it up, and I had to bring it up because I wasn't going to, but keep going.
Yeah. So I think something happened at the swimming hole. And if it was one of those things where it was like that long where she slowly was drowning, you know, and she's just dead, and, you know, they're just like, this happened. We got to get, I'm wondering if somewhere out on that acreage, she isn't buried somewhere.
Mm.
Well, and here's your curveball. During the investigation of the property, Dawn and Candace continue to insist that she is not on the property and that they need to be scouring the woods and surrounding areas. So they are actually trying to get her off. Yeah, they are trying to get her off.
Oh, come on.
Property. Right.
Is this like one of those cartoon things where Bugs Bunny runs over and is like, he's definitely not in this closet? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And Don does have a history of he has had DUIs. He's also had like some physical altercations. They've had physical altercations where she's called the cops on him, and then
Right.
actually filed a charge against him, and then ended up like dropping it. So you've got a drunken abusive household.
Mm.
Yeah.
You've got hoarding. You've got explicit content that the kids are exposed to. The property itself is not in the best shape. So a month later, CDS does come and remove the children, the rest of the kids. They take
Okay.
them. Don does say in an interview, he's like, I'm kind of glad that they did because it wasn't safe for them. You know, Candace and I are both now drinking heavily, arguing all the time. There's now public coming onto their property and trespassing, and it's just not safe for the kids on top of all this. Which, I mean, I get that. Candace is obviously extremely distraught, but he is kind of happy that they did get to, that they were removed.
Wow. I'm going back to the water hole when Hunter pulled her out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking he pulled her out and she wasn't, with us then, because when it was time for them to go back to the house, he wanted to go home.
Right.
I think Hunter knew something.
I agree. And actually, during the investigation, the initial one, they do go to his house and interview him.
Mhm.
But they had some I don't know what you call them, where they can like kind of read people. It's like a profession.
Mhm.
They had people analyze the interview and said that it was very off and didn't line up. Like Hunter didn't really know a lot. He said a lot of ums and ahs, and like
Mhm.
it just was very off put and uncomfortable in the interview. So like it is weird. And I didn't use any of the information from it because there's not really, I mean, I've said everything that he said. And during the
Mhm.
interview, there's a ton of ums and ahs. Like it doesn't really, and he's a little bit older. I think he's like 12 or 13. He's one of the older, kind of with the older son. But yeah, it's weird, man. This whole case is pretty weird. And I've actually shared all the stuff that I had. But again, there's the cornbread mafia kind of throws me off. The Dr.
Mhm.
Phil mentioned that. He did mention that he said, I don't think that the parents killed her, but he did lean towards Candace as if he thinks that she knows.
Because she doesn't want to talk to anybody.
Well, I think it's because he kept pressuring, because she was there and he kept pressing her during the interview, which you guys, anybody that's watching or listens to this later on, there is a ton of information out there that you can go search. I do appreciate you guys watching this, but there is tons more that I didn't talk about. I just kind of hit the facts and the stuff that I did find. And that's kind of the whole purpose of this show, is to not necessarily, give too much away, because there's always more that you can go find. But I gave all the facts that are necessary to kind of come up with our own conclusion.
Mhm.
And that's where we're at. I don't think it's paranormal. I mean, I'm not saying that it's too far out there, Sean, but I'm not thinking it's paranormal. I think something happened earlier on in the day. I have 5 dogs, keep in mind, people. I mean, I know that even if it's somebody that's been in my house a dozen times in a week, those dogs, or at least one of the dogs, is still barking. And actually, it's usually all of mine. So I don't think that she was abducted. I think something happened to her.
Mhm.
And the thing is, the reaction of the cornbread mafia from was it Candy or Candace?
Candace is the
off stage.
mom. Yeah.
And Candy's the mother.
The mother of the mom.
Who walked off stage.
The mom. Candace. Candy was not on there. Candy was not in any of the interviews.
Okay, so Candace walked off stage. So her walking off stage at the mention of the cornbread mafia, I mean, could be correlation, not causation, meaning that there might be something going on with the cornbread mafia, because if Don, with his amazing haircut, is involved, I mean, that thing is stunning.
I'm gonna interject real quick. I don't want to interrupt, but I was thinking Trump when I seen his hair.
Actually, I was thinking 70s Python, but
he's gotta have the same hairdresser as Trump.
Yeah.
It's rough. There's a bowl involved somewhere.
Right.
But there might be something where they've had problems with the cornbread mafia, and it has nothing to do with this situation, but the things that have been happening are so upsetting, right?
Mhm.
Right.
That now here's a theory. They're out and about with the kids at the swimming hole. Cornbread mafia comes up, X's out the kid, okay, at the
Yeah.
watering hole. They take her back home, and basically the CBM says, you say anything about this, you're going to end up just like her.
Yeah.
So they bury her somewhere on the property. All right. She tells Don what's up, and they have to concoct this whole story to cover up the fact that she got murdered by these dudes, right? And now there's this whole thing, and they're like, she ain't on the property. No, you need to look over in the holler, but not here.
Yeah.
So there's so many things. It's like she either accidentally died and they don't want to deal with it, right? And all the mess because it just happened.
Right.
Or this cornbread mafia thing does play in. That's why she's so upset, because they did kill her to send a message to Don, or both of them, because of drugs, whatever it is. And they just have to eat the fact that the kid is dead, right?
See, I was kind of having a twist on that. Maybe they're involved with the cornbread mafia. Maybe she dies in the truck. Maybe she dies in the truck. Well, maybe she dies in the truck. They drop off Hunter. They meet up with somebody from the cornbread mafia and ask them to get rid of the body.
Oh man, if they got hogs, forget about it.
Right.
Hogs eat every bit of that.
So, in order to kind of cover their own ass, hey, I know you guys can get rid of this. And then, they come up with this elaborate story of her being abducted from the property.
Right.
That doesn't make sense.
Interesting.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That is very interesting. I think you scored one, Jukebox.
Yes. No, but I mean, based on the timeline and the information and the fact that they were barely mentioned only in the interview with Dr. Phil, it just kind of, the way she reacted, it just, I mean, I feel like there's clearly involvement with that. And again, I don't think she's abducted because of the dog situation. Like, that's the biggest clue to me. That's, I mean, the biggest red flag is the dog's not barking or anything. And they even actually, Candace, real quick, I'll let you talk, Evolution. Sorry. But I'll lose this thought. They did say that the TBI, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, did a very crappy job of scouting the property because their drugs or their dogs, the sniffing dogs that they brought to the property, they didn't ask them to put away their dogs, so they were distracted.
Oh.
So they try to throw that in there that like they didn't do a good job of searching for their daughter. What you got, Evolution?
So I was just gonna say no tire tracks.
No tire tracks.
And when you said sniffing dogs, yeah, that made a lot of sense because you got well-trained dogs that are trying to do their job, and then you got these other dogs that are going berserk, reminding these trained dogs that they're dogs too. You know what I mean? Then you also have the mother directing them in other areas, making sure they don't go a certain direction. If I had an explanation for all this, I'm like, yeah, definitely something happened at the water hole. I think actually it happened at the water hole. And I think, yeah, they probably consulted the corn mafia. Corn, what's it? How you say?
Cornbread.
What's the name?
Cornbread. Cornbread mafia.
Yeah, cornbread mafia to erase any type of evidence that could be found, just so she can be off the hook.
It's got to be it.
And just make the child disappear, which is very, very sad. But that's where I'm at with it. I mean, to me, that would make more sense than anything else that they brought up. It
Yeah.
just that would line up a lot better. That's what I got.
Yeah. What you got,
Oh.
Sean?
Well, I think I'm on board with that, because here's the thing: if we're talking time frames, and look at the abundance of evidence and the lack of it too. All right. So if she dies at the watering hole, all right, and Hunter is aware that it happened, and they're taking these videos and stuff, and they're concocting these things, and they're rapidly trying to pull in all these different points of this, the talking points of what happened. The mom went out for a walk. Well, no, we were out planting flowers for just 2 seconds, but we decided not to plant the flowers. It's like there's so many things from all over the place. And I was going to the church because I was sure she was at the church, and I saw the cops, so I drove back. What it sounds like is a bunch of people involved. She dies, and they are trying to cover it up because they don't want to go to jail. They don't want to lose their kids, all this other stuff, whatever their reasoning is. They pose the picture with Hunter. Hunter's nervous as shit because, one, he's 12. He knows what happened. And if the Cornbread Mafia is involved and this kid knows what they can do, he's going to be all kinds of nervous, where it's like, they no, she was.
Right.
So with his reaction to it, they're amalgamation of all these bullshit stories that don't quite add up, and looking at everything, I think that's pretty spot on. But I do have one other thing that I would add to this that I don't think you guys have considered yet.
What's that?
If you put a side by side of Gypsy Rose's mom with Dawn, I'm almost sure it's the same person.
Oh man.
I got something here.
All right, yeah, let's get it out there, man.
I want to see the receipt of what was purchased at the grocery store. I think that'll tie in everything and solve this mystery. Because why would you go to a store after your child drowned? You know what I mean? I want to, especially knowing what was in the house. I want to see a list of what was purchased in a grocery store, because if it was a tarp, a rope, a shovel, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That would explain a lot.
Or hastily bought items that just make no sense. Like
yeah.
I'm guessing it was a Hustler magazine and a few other DVDs.
We just stopped to get our daily
dose of porn
and lube.
Getting tired of all of our pre-recorded VHSs. They gotta get some fresh content.
We gotta get Candy's ball.
The kids have been bugging us for it, so I mean, we gotta get some new stuff.
It's cracking up over there.
No joke. And as much as we play around with this stuff, guys, yes, it's serious. This is serious stuff, and the more episodes we get into the more intrigued I am about them. And this case is interesting in the fact that it's still an open case and it's still an open investigation. And actually, Dawn is currently in prison for DUI. It has nothing to do with the missing, but he got a DUI, and it's just, I don't know. I don't think she's alive. I think we kind of hit the nail on the head on this one. Again, everybody, this is speculation. Just a disclaimer, kind of like Sean. I'm glad that you mentioned that. I should throw one on this show too, because nothing that we are saying is confirmed. Anybody listening or watching, this is just purely based on the information that I'm presenting, us kind of making our own, assumptions. So.
Why is she leaning up against the milk?
I know.
That's such a weird
I don't get it.
thing.
You got a soft seat on the other side that's empty.
Yeah.
That's really strange that she's propped up like that. And the other thing too is rigor doesn't set in right away. A lot of people seem to think that as soon as you die, you and freeze up. That's not what happens. Rigor, it takes a bit to set in, and then once it sets in, it doesn't stay. You don't stay in full rigor. it's like a bell curve. It goes and then down, right?
Right.
Okay. So if she's dead right there, okay, if she's dead and she is looking a bit pale, which is weird for the heat, right?
Right.
And they need to prop her up, and Hunter doesn't want a dead body up against him. I could very much see them doing this way, because 2 gallons of cold milk, like I don't care how warm you are, that and stacked on top of each other, it's just, that's so strange. What a strange thing to do.
Yeah.
OIQ or not.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
And why would you take a video or even a picture of her sleeping?
Yeah.
What
That makes no sense. That this is like a preponderance of evidence to prove something. To say, oh, look, she's totally fine. She was sleeping after a long day of being in the swimming hole, and she coughed a little bit. So here she is, passed out on 2 gallons of milk, oddly placed between her and Hunter.
Right. No, that's
in his body language too.
The way he's kind of, I mean, all you see is the arm, but
his body is leaned away. His arm is even on the back side of the seat. It's not like this. Okay, now I've ridden bench seats before. You put your arm over the back, but it is everything is away. It's like he's trying to be away from.
Yeah, because he's freaking out because he knows
if she was sleeping and he was a family friend, why would they not have just rested her head on him?
Yes, exactly. But Hunter's freaking out because he knows she's already gone.
There's a barrier. There's a box. There's milk. There's probably groceries underneath the box, and he's on the other side of that.
He's like, I'm not gonna touch her.
Yeah,
especially
if he's the one who retrieved her and knew that she was gone.
Right.
Definitely. Yeah. So
why isn't it in the seat belt too? And why isn't she over here?
Right. In the corner, because you're not supposed to put a kid in the middle seat, but based on this family, I don't think they give a shit about that.
No, they don't. But it's just okay. You're talking humans across the board are generally the same psychologically. We're very path of least resistance. Okay. And for the kid to sit in the middle seat, there had to be effort, because when you get in, you have to move to that point. Right.
Right.
And for them to position the groceries, it would have had to have been all right, Hunter, we're going to put that milk right by you instead of sitting it on the floor. And now the kid's going to, it's like,
right.
Do you see what I mean? It's like the mathematics of the way the movements and situationally, it all breaks down. None of this makes sense except to tell a story.
Exactly. And if the kids were in the car and they strategically just put the groceries between them like that, like you were saying, like it just doesn't, they're clearly covering up something. And to take this little quick video, and if you look at the video, Candace is driving, the mom takes a quick flip around and she shows a real quick flash of her. And that's where you get the screenshot. And then it just comes right back around and shuts off. So super fast video, not a lot. I mean, but it gives away a lot. This one image gives away so much.
Her hands too.
Yeah.
It's not just that the one is laying like this. There's not even like any flexion in the fingers. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And the only reason that one's flexed on her left hand is because it's laying on her lap, so the fingers are curled up underneath.
That's a very strong point, Sean. And if you look at the hand that's down the lowest on the left, the thumb is not relaxed. It's up.
Yeah, it's this.
And if you're asleep, everything's gonna be relaxed.
Right.
That sucker's rigor.
I mean, on top of that, it is whole milk, so that's got to be a clue right there. Because I don't drink whole milk; I only drink 2%. So there's something up to that.
Oh man,
it's like garlic for a vampire, honestly.
Man,
gingers can't do whole milk, so there's that. Another little conspiracy theory.
Because whole milk has a soul. don't even know what that
No,
means.
that cow's soul is in that milk, guys. I can only do the diluted. It has to be super diluted for me. All right, everybody. I want to wrap up on that note. I think I'm still settling with the water hole caused it. She's dead.
Mhm.
They're covering it up. I mean,
Yeah.
that's mine.
I'm 100% there, guys.
And if you're not convinced, the milk has to
It's the milk.
it has to throw you over the edge.
It's just weird.
Yeah. Hopefully another good case for everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed this one.
Wow, that was
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Interesting. But again, a good choice because it's one of those ones where it's like, here's this piece, here's this piece, here's
Yeah.
this piece, and the math is just not. It just
The
doesn't
math
add
ain't
up.
mathin'.
Right.
Right.
Crazy.
All right. Well, to everybody that tuned in today, which there was quite a few on and off of here, Janet,
Yeah.
as always, thank you. You've been a regular lately, and I appreciate that. Actually, for
Yeah.
multiple of the shows, so thank you so
Yeah.
much. And until next time, we'll probably do another one here about a week and a half. I've already got the story for the next one. I do want to give a clue to everybody. I've discussed this with Sean Evolution. We are going to do an episode called Disneyception, but I think it's going to be like a 2-part episode further down the road. We'll probably do a few more episodes because I want to do some compiling of evidence for this one. And I think it'll be good because it'll not just be kind of the true tales behind the movies, but maybe more in depth behind the scenes of Disney. So everybody stay tuned. I think that'll be a good 2-parter. But until then, and until the next episode, we'll see you guys around.
All right. Take care.